There's a lot going on in our country right now. Since getting back in power, Trump has caused a lot of chaos and confusion. He's done things like gutting our government oversight, pushing messed up policies that strip away basic human rights. He's been ramping up attacks on the media, stacking the courts with loyalists, and fueling division by continuing to spread nothing but hate and misinformation. Meanwhile, everyday Americans are struggling. Wages are stagnant, costs are skyrocketing, and funding for beneficial programs is on the chopping block. It's a rough time, but I came across a comment on YouTube recently that really struck me. It was from someone in another country, and they said something along the lines of Americans are just sitting back and letting this happen, so I don't feel bad for them. And at first, as an American, I was highly offended because obviously we care. Like, how dare this foreigner judge us? All of this affects our everyday lives, and we're not in agreement with any of the BS that's happening in our country. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized they were kind of right. Like, let's face it, the vast majority of us are not doing anything tangible. We're very good at expressing our outrage on social media. We constantly talk about how bad things are getting. But other than that, what are we really doing about it? Because when it comes to real, organized resistance, there's this massive gap. And I started to ask myself, why is that? I think the main reason is that most of us simply don't know how to fight back because we have never had to. Most Americans, especially millennials and Gen Z, have never had to fight. Our lives are simple now because older generations did the fighting for us. We've never seen firsthand what real mass scale organized resistance looks like. Because think about it, the civil rights movement was in the 1950s and 60s. The Vietnam War protests and the Stonewall riots. These were all moments in history. And yeah, they shaped change, but that was almost an entire century ago. And now, as a result, our younger generations are feeling pretty lost and don't know how to fight back against oppression. And the thing about it, those movements had leaders, strong, clear voices that guided people and gave the resistance a strategy, a mission, and a direction. But today, we don't have none of that. We don't have an MLK. We don't have a Malcolm X. Yeah, we have some strong voices that are rising, like Jasmine Crockett, AOC, Jamie Raskin, and Bernie Sanders, but none of them have yet become the voice that unifies and mobilizes an entire movement. And that's another problem, because without leadership and proper organization, resistance becomes scattered. People burn out. We get stuck in the cycle of outrage with nowhere for it to go. I've also been feeling stuck, feeling hopelessly defeated and not knowing what the hell to do about it. When Obama won in 2008, he had a super Democrat House and Senate majority, unlike anything we've seen in decades. Republicans had zero leverage to work with. They took action. The day of President Obama's inauguration, Republican leadership had a private meeting. They formulated a calculated plan to obstruct every single thing Obama wanted to do, and they were partially successful. I'm bringing this up now because now it's our turn to play defense. We need to be vigilant and we need to be strategic. This is the moment where people like us need to step up. And if you're watching this and you're feeling what I'm saying, then here's a playbook of what you can actually do to start fighting back. Put pressure on Congress. And although some people say reaching out to elected officials is pointless, I strongly disagree. Because if we really want change, we have to make Congress very uncomfortable. And no, I'm not talking about strongly worded tweets. I'm talking about relentless strategic pressure that makes ignoring us impossible. Call their offices, email them every day, several times a day if you have to. Show up at their town halls and make them answer for their decisions on camera. Then put those moments on social media for the entire world to see how full of shit they really are. Flood their staff with so many calls that they know your voice by heart. Organize protests, not just in DC, but in their home districts where they're really going to feel the heat. And if they still refuse to act, bet. Make it clear that their job is on the line and start having conversations about suitable primary challengers in your district and make sure that those conversations are public. Because politicians don't fear moral outrage, they fear losing re-election. So let's make them sweat. Number two, use your economic power. Boycotts work. Where you put your money matters. So support companies that align with your values. Stores like Costco, Sephora, and Petco kept their DEI policies even when Trump tried to get rid of them. So stop giving money to corporations funding policies that hurt you or people in your community. And lastly, challenge complacency in your own circles. It's not enough to just personally care. We have to make others around us care too. That means pushing back when people say things like it is what it is or nothing's going to change. Because guess what? It doesn't change if we do nothing. We have to shift that mindset one conversation at a time.